I saw him here at CNBC doing a business news interview one night, and I said, I'd love to have you on the show. He said, sure. So he's here, mended, raring to go. David Dinkins, Mayor David Dinkins.
Hi.
Hi. How are you feeling? We want to get that out of the way. You feeling good?
I feel pretty good. I'm enrolled in a cardiac rehabilitation program that New York Hospital has. They have a facility at 62nd in York, and I walk there from my home on 68th Street 3 mornings a week. You do various exercises on machines with you monitored. I do this for 3 months, and when doctor told me it was 3 months long, I said, you mean I can't play tennis for 3 months?
I was going to ask you that. Are you playing
He said, no, I'll be able to play sooner than that.
Really?
Yeah, no, seriously.
So you're not back yet playing tennis?
No, not yet. But it's been approximately 6 weeks since the surgery. So from all indications, I'm on or ahead of schedule.
Was it hereditary? I mean, did you have heart problems in your family, or?
No. Well, I had a coronary in 1985, but I didn't have surgery, and but I thought I was all right. I didn't have any problems. But as I look back now in retrospect, there were indications that should have been warnings to me, and simply because God was looking after me, that I had this episode, which, because of my history, caused them to then check my heart. And they found the 3 clogged arteries. When
they told you that, that's got to scare the hell out of you.
Well, especially because at first we thought it was nothing. Then they thought, well, maybe we can take care of it with an angiogram and angioplasty, and then triple bypass. And it just sort of kept escalating.
I never talk to a doctor when the stock market goes down. I'm always afraid he's got his stocks in there. He says, I got to operate. I need a little cash. My stocks are headed south.
Well,
so I never go to the doctor on a day when the stock market goes down.
Let me tell you the strangest thing, though. I'm in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, at Dennis Vandermeer's place. He's a good friend. And so when the initial examination was there at Hilton Head Island Hospital, wonderful doctor, Jamie Johnson, and everything was fine, but when they determined that they had to do a bypass, they couldn't do it there. And among the cities that I was offered as options, because they advised against flying home to New York, was Charleston. And I picked Charleston because the mayor, Joe Riley, is a long-time mayor. For 20 years he's been mayor, and he's a good friend, and that's how I ended up.
So you felt more comfortable there, huh?
But it developed that they have a wonderful facility, and the surgeon is top-notch, and
I'm glad you're feeling better. Let me ask you about, okay, now you got a little hindsight on this mayor thing. What would you have done differently?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important to as one looks back, they say, well, and they ask each other and they ask me, well, what happened in 93? And I said, I think really you need to look at 89. Because in 1989, I went up against 3 very well-qualified persons and good candidates in Dick Ravitch, Jay Golden, and Ed Koch. And the wisdom was that I would have to probably do real well to avoid a runoff. As a fact, I got the majority of the vote. I got more than the 3 of them put together. And yet in a city with an overwhelming Democratic enrollment, and Rudy Giuliani, at this point at least, had no record as in municipal affairs. He was a prosecutor.
Right.
Some would argue he still is a prosecutor, but
I've heard you guys say that. You don't like Rudy well, do you?
I do like Rudy.
Ah, come on, Dave. Don't give me that.
He's a great American.
Yeah, come on. You don't really like him. Yeah, well, you can be honest.
So how do you figure with this overwhelming Democratic enrollment that I win by the skin of my teeth? Which, incidentally, is approximately the same margin by which I lost in 93.
Isn't this city moving to the right? Isn't New York City moving a little further to the right?
Oh, hell yeah. Sure it is.
I mean, it's crime, isn't it? I mean,
people say and the state is, but moving more to the right as well. I think that with respect to crime, I think history will, and some people even now, recognize that crime started to go down even in the last 2 years of my administration.
I have to jump in here. We'll be right back with Mayor David Dinkins. Don't go away. Great in that subject.
Well, I'll tell you, my undergraduate degree is in mathematics with honors, I might add, from Howard University, which if said fast sounds like Harvard.
Yeah. And, Howard. You went to Howard? Yeah.
And most of the students in my classes went on to engineering, architecture, and a few into medicine and dentistry. but I wasn't that smart, so I became a lawyer.
We were talking about crime, and there is crime in the city. We had a recent incident in Central Park again that was a tragedy. But talk to me about crime in the city.
Okay, first of all, crime is down not only in our city but across the country generally. In the city, I claim some credit along with Lee Brown and Ray Kelly and Peter Vallone in our city council, and indeed the state legislature and the governor, because they permitted me to get through what we call Safe Street, Safe City. It's a program that isolated some money, segregated some tax monies for the specific purpose of buying cops, to put more cops on the street. And Rudy now is enjoying that, and for which I'm very happy.
I think he actually said that once
on occasion, he allows us how
I've heard
we
him
had
say
a contribution.
But
Let me tell you what really bothers me. Crime is down, and of course that will mean little to a given victim. You know, if you say you're 1 in 1,000 and you're that one, you know, obviously it doesn't help. But I think we're doing much better in our city. But I am tremendously troubled by the increase in police brutality. Now, the Civilian Complaint Review Board, for which I fought, as a matter of fact, you will recall that the police stormed City Hall steps, and the issue on which they had that demonstration, and many behaved not only improperly but out and out illegally, was their objection to my support for Civilian Complaint Review Board and for residency for police officers, among other things. But all events, we got this Civilian Complaint Review Board now, and the statistics show that the allegations, and underlying allegations, charges, complaints of improper behavior by cops, up 37% in 1994 over 93, and something in the neighborhood of 90% for the first 6 months of 95 over 93. But in many ways, most serious of all, complaints of illegal searches and seizures up 100% in 94 over 93.
How do you cut the fine line, though? Because a cop trying to do it's the toughest job in the world. I wouldn't want to do
question.
that. If a guy reached in his pocket, you're liable to shoot.
I understand.
How do you walk that fine line?
Well, a variety of ways. Number one, let me just say now, lest I fail to have the opportunity, I believe our police officers are the finest in the world, that they put their lives on the line every day, the men and women of the NYPD, for the rest of us. They're all that stand between us and lawlessness. However, we've got some who are brutal, who are bullies. We've got some who are corrupt, and we know this.
Do we have Mark Furmans in the New York Police Department?
I'm confident we do. I'm confident that we do. But not most are not that way, but too many are silent. Mm-hmm. And you see, because of the, quote, police culture, and it's not all white police officers against blacks, although there certainly is that, but we have the police culture of I got a badge and a gun, I'm in charge, and you do what the hell I say. And this sad circumstance just the other day of Brian Moody, a young executive, African-American, about 36 years old, with Wall Street Journal, Dow Jones, and he and his mother, a woman about my age, 68.
39.
And
40,
right,
yeah.
and they had been to the movie, to a play rather, and they in the subway and put a token in it, jammed. He put a second token in, either there or in a different turnstile, and two went through together. Immediately seized by two plainclothes police officers. They spent the night in jail, handcuffed, mugged, printed. That's just plain asinine. And Ed Koch, to his great credit, has a column in the Post, for which he writes right now, alluding to this as an unfortunate circumstance. Then we had a youngster, a mother or a grandmother with a youngster like 4 years old, took a leak in the park, and they pounced on him.
4?
Yeah, I mean,
a life of crime.
You know,
started in a life of.
But the police brutality is very serious, and you may know that I appointed Milt Marlin, former judge, presiding justice of the appellate division, who had been a deputy mayor of mine, to look at the question of police corruption. He did a good job, rendered a report that suggested there ought to be a separate, independent entity to look into police corruption. And maybe before the program's over, I'll tell you a little more about why I think that's important.
We're going to have to take a break here. Did you, good, bad, scale of 1 to 10, how's he doing, Bratton as chief of police?
I'd give him about a 5 or 6.
Okay. He's been pretty tough on corruption in the police department.
I'll tell you why.
Wait, all right, we'll take that. We're going to learn why Mayor Dinkins gives Commissioner Bratton a 5 or 6 right after these messages. Stay with us. Talking with a man who's had a fascinating life. Being mayor of New York City is no easy job. David Dinkins is here. David Dinkins, tell me about Bratton, police commissioner.
Well, the reason that I say that I'd give him a 5 or 6 is that I believe the tone is set at the top by the mayor and the police commissioner, and an overly aggressive style of policing can lead to the increases in complaints in the civilian complaint review board.
But hasn't it also led to a lowering of crime rates?
Yeah, but you see, we have a system of jurisprudence that says that because I suspect that you have contraband in your house, I can't kick your door down and seize it, even though it's there, and say, see, I told you so.
Do they do that in this city?
We have done it in some instances. I mean, you can't say the end justifies the means. My quarrel with Commissioner Bratton is that he says that a police officer may pat down a person for drinking in public if he has a reason to feel threatened. And the case law really says that the police officer has to have reasonable suspicion and be able to articulate it, which doesn't mean he was black and looked a little shifty. If he's got a gun in his waistband, you see a bulge, yeah, that's okay. Now, this is important because we have cases, not the NYPD, but the Metro North cops that stopped Earl Graves' son, looking for a well-dressed black, 5'10" with a mustache. He's 6'4" and no mustache. One news commentator said, well, he can shave off a mustache, and someone replied, yeah, but can he grow 6 inches? But if I may, on the question of a separate entity to monitor the police, the Mullen Commission recommended it. Peter Vallone, to his great credit, got it through the city council. The mayor vetoed it. The council overrode the veto, and the mayor said, I'm still not going to do it. He says that it violates his mayoral prerogative because the council would make some of the appointments. Well, we had the same situation with the Civilian Complaint Review Board, and Vallone and I worked it out, and we have that now. So I think when you got the Furman tapes, you got what's going on in New Orleans, in Philadelphia, and right here in New York City, it's fascinating to me that the good government groups and editorial people aren't climbing all over the mayor for resisting this separate entity.
What's the state of race relations? Are they improving in this country or not?
I don't think they're improving. We've improved some things a great deal because obviously I come from a generation, although I was in the Marine Corps in World War II and went to Howard University, we couldn't shop on F Street downtown or go to the movies. And there were segregated circumstances even following World War II, and many of my classmates had shrapnel in their bodies and it didn't mean anything. And I recall the days when U.S. troops who were African American in the South were treated less well than the German and Italian prisoners they were guarding. That's ridiculous. So we've come a long way from that day,
right,
to be sure. But we still don't judge people by the content of their character. The color of his skin seems to be predominant in too many ways.
Do you, Minister Farrakhan has been a very controversial figure, and many black leaders have shied away from being at all critical. Have you been, or are you at all critical of anything he does?
Well, as a matter of fact, Ed Koch and Ben Ward, his police commissioner, insisted that I accept police protection because I was critical of Minister Farrakhan some years back. Down at Madison Square Garden, I had a full-fledged statement because he had said, among other things, that the Jewish religion is a gutter religion,
that's right,
and things of that sort. And I felt the need to speak out, and I did. And so some people didn't like that. Now, I don't think Minister Farrakhan had any intent to do me harm, but some nut in the 40th row could think he got a message.
Yeah,
and so
right.
First I refused protection, and Ed Koch and Ben Ward insisted. And so for a period of time I had some bodyguards.
Would you vote for Colin Powell for president?
I might, but right now my intent is to support the Clinton-Gore ticket. I should, by way of full disclosure, tell you that Colin Powell is a friend of mine, and I have great admiration, respect, and affection for him.
What kind of a president would he make? Do you know him well enough to have a sense of that?
Well, I'll tell you, going in, he'd make as good a president or better than some we've had. Because keep in mind that you never quite know, and sometimes a person rises to the job. I grew up listening to Churchill and Roosevelt and great orators like that, and then when Truman came along, I said, "Oh my God." But Truman developed to be a pretty damn good president.
Yeah, he did. I have to admit, he made tough decisions.
Yeah.
You know what the mayor carries in his pocket? Show those kids pictures. We're going home here. This is what he carries around, folks. He and I have a mutual friend, Peter Johnson. I think his kids. You got your grandkids in there. You got all your grandkids.
These are Peter's
These
children.
are Peter's kids. Give me that. He's a good friend of mine, Peter Johnson. Mayor and I share his. He's a friend of both of ours. Do you have any of your grandkids there? What do you got?
Of course.
Hold a couple of those up.
Well, here's a student of mine. I'm teaching tennis.
Oh wait, take a shot of that. Here we go.
Monica Sellers.
Oh.
And this is my daughter.
Wow. Here.
And this is
his daughter. We got to wrap it up. Thanks to Mayor Dinkins. Stay on these. Here's the grandson. Thanks to John Larroquette for tonight's show as well. Thank you all. Here's the granddaughter. Take a shot of that. There we go. Good night, everybody.